Welcome to Guns, Gear, and Guns with Gary Gunderson. I am Gary Gunderson. I have here a CZ-75 Omega, which I recently purchased, and these are interesting because these and the CZ-SP01s come with both the pieces for the decocker or safety instead of choosing one or another based on the model you purchase. So I'm going to show you today how to both take on and off the safety and on and off the decocker in case you need to switch them out or for maintenance or to replace pieces if they were to break for some reason. So this is clearly, not altering the firearm. It's just setting it up to the proper configuration and making it the safest possible one for your personal preference. First things first, do a simple field strip, and for that, you line up these notches on the slide and frame. Hold that in place. Pull out the slide stop, and the slide comes right off, and you can set that and the slide stop aside. As you can see, it is currently set up with the safety in place, and you can test it. Of course, don't let the hammer hit the frame by itself without the slide in place. To remove it, you're going to need to press down on the extractor here. But all you really need is a punch or something to push in there. And if you're pressing down the extractor, it'll make the removal very easy. See, it popped out that entire area. And then to get the other end off, you shift it all the way into the vertical position, and then just kind of work it loose, and it will come off. And looking at the frame without a safety or decocker in place, you can see that the trigger bar will need pushed down out of the way at part of it to reinstall, and the same with the extractor on the other end. So keep that in mind that you're going to have to manipulate these a little bit in order to install either the safety or the decocker. Another thing to note on the safety is that there's a little tab here, and it is under spring tension. So be careful when you are removing it, because this tab and the spring may come loose. I'll take it off here and show you how to put it back on. So that spring comes out. And so you have those two pieces. And so if it were to come out when you're disassembling it, you just drop the spring back in that hole. And then I think using a punch is pretty easy. You can get the tab back into place. Just kind of push on and set it against the nub there. And this moves when you engage and disengage the safety and gives you the positive click. So now that you've seen that, to get the safety reinstalled, you're going to need to press down on the trigger bar, as you can see there. With that pressed down, there's nothing obstructing the hole on this end, and you install this vertically, and you can see that once in the vertical position, it actually cams that trigger bar down and keeps it out of the way, making it easier to install. You're going to push down the extractor a little bit and install the other side, and similarly trying to keep it this equal vertical and lined up across everything so that it goes in evenly. and pushing down the extractor helps that. It's most of the way in, but as you can see, there's still a gap in the frame there. So lower it back into the position where it will be. And there you have it. You can test it out without having to reinstall the slide. And it can be a little, this is definitely a little tight right now, but you can hear that positive click. And you can see that there's no gap in the frame and that it is sticking out a little bit on the other side. So that's the safety. So we'll get the safety out again, and simple punch while pushing down the extractor. It's helpful when it's not actually engaged in the safety, so there's less pressure on it. And now we're going to go over the decocker. But one thing real quick first. Since you do have separate pieces here, it is important to keep them together. The easy way to tell is that the actual pieces are aligned differently. So you can see the safety pieces match and the decocker pieces also match. So if you're trying to put one with the other, obviously that's incorrect. And it can kind of work, but I think it's probably a little harder. But honestly, you might actually be able to install it that way. But that's just the easy way to keep them straight. Just look at the pieces and make sure they are matching. For the decocker, not only do you have the two pieces, you also have this spring. And so, you know, when you're installing it, you're going to have to stick this long part of the spring in that hole there. So I'm going to try to just insert it real quick, hopefully on camera as best as possible. So with the spring in place and the little end of the spring facing forward down the barrel end, you can install the other pieces of the decocker. The first end is the same as the first end of the safety. Push down the trigger bar, install in the vertical position. And this one can go down. It doesn't have to stay in the vertical because you're going to have to thread through this thing, which is thicker in several areas than the safety. It has this nub here, which the small part of the spring is going to be pushed under once the decocker's in place. So you're going to have to kind of push in the extractor, and kind of twist, make sure to get lined up through the spring successfully, and then kind of just wiggle it until you get both of them lined up together. There you go. It's through most of the way. Now, bringing it up vertically, you can see this piece and the spring. So what you're going to do is kind of slide the spring over a bit and push down in order to get it under that spring tension. And then, of course, it should be engaged now, so point down, putting the slide back on in order to test it. And there you go. So, I'll show you how to remove the decocker, and that should be the last part of this. So removing the decocker is pretty much the same. Just kind of push down on the extractor, push through. Now that spring may come loose, so just be wary of that. As you can see, you do kind of have to twist and push down the extractor to get this piece out since it's a little awkward. And that's it. Personally, I like the safety instead of the decocker because it's one consistent trigger pull. I know a lot of people feel differently. A lot of people like that first double action, and they like the long trigger pull as a safety instead of an actual safety to switch on and off. And I understand that. And that's one of the advantages of this CZ-75 Omega and other CZs with this same feature that have both the decocker and safety pieces with the firearm, so you can set it up to your personal preference so you are most effective with it without having to purchase one specifically. And this also does give you the luxury of being able to go back and forth depending on what you're wanting to do with it at any given time. This being relatively new, it is really tight trying to get these installed and uninstalled. And I've done this a few times now, and this is probably the easiest time. Since I've done it a few times, I think it's gotten a little looser and worked out a little bit because I think, the brand new finish, sometimes it's just super tight. And now after a few times, it starts to loosen up. So don't be too afraid that it's, if it's not getting in all the way, because like I said, when you're first trying to do it and get it against the frame, there can be a little gap where it won't go all the way in. So, just try working in and out. I did even use a punch and kind of cleaned out this end a little bit. And I think that actually did help. But I don't know if that was necessary. It just made it a little bit easier. I'd already done a few switches, but it was just such a tight fit. On that note, I should mention that the first few times I did change it from one to the other, it did not pop out all the way like it did here in the video. And I used a pocket knife to kind of pry it out the rest of the way. When it's kind of just barely out of the frame, when you're trying to push the safety or decocker out, it may not go as smoothly, but like I said and showed, holding down on the extractor while you push it with a punch or something similar helps it considerably. But I think most people, once you have it set up how you like it, I don't think you're going to be going back and forth all the time. But it's good to know how to do in case you want to, need to, or if you need to replace the parts or inspect the parts. You should know how to take apart your firearm, at least to this degree. And that's all I have for today. I should be having some more videos about this CZ-75 before too long. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you find this to be an easy switch or a convenient switch? Do you prefer the decocker or do you prefer the safety? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more content. Thanks for watching.